All rise for the pledge, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening.
With me.
First item on the agenda is my field distributors, Cocoa Farms. Michael?
All of the zoning comments have been addressed for 2 meetings now, and all the necessary variances were granted by the Zoning Board of Appeals.
Is Rich here?
Rich is going to be late this evening, Mr. Chairman, but I have his memo. Rich indicates he repeats the number of referrals and permits that are required for this application. The applicant provided a traffic analysis that has been forwarded to the DOT and Putnam County Highway for review, and that he's indicating that those agencies should provide their findings to your board. He's asking for all regrading to accomplish the improvements to be provided, including areas outside of disturbance areas that are being planted. He's noting that a stormwater maintenance agreement's required. Should any public improvements be necessary as part of the development, a performance bond would be required. And then he has a series of detailed comments, about 6 of them, that relate to construction drawings and details.
Pat?
And the applicant's already addressed all the site planning issues, so there are no more planning issues related to this application, Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
So I apologize that we had not responded to the engineer's comments. There was some kind of communication breakdown. The memo was issued several months ago, but following the last meeting, we never received it. My design team did get a response into Rich earlier today. I understand he's not here. I don't know if he's had a chance to look at it. I would say most of his comments were nothing significant, and we have addressed each on the most recent submission back to Rich. I don't know if he's had a chance to review that or not yet, but I think the next step in your process would be to schedule a public hearing unless there's any other outstanding issues you'd like us to address. Just to briefly recap, we did, in the intervening 6 to 7 month period that we've been gone, we did receive approval from the DEP. In addition, we've received tentative approval from the DOT. We don't have a highway work permit yet. That's in process, but they've given us conceptual approval.
I think we went over a lot of detail on that traffic there, correct? The engineer addressed all that traffic up that, Rich?
So Rich didn't comment on that, but John Collins is here tonight from Mazer, and he may be able to speak to those issues on our behalf.
If I may recap, I believe there was one outstanding question. This was in one of our prior submissions about the egress out of the driveway on Stoneleigh. There was a question whether the county would allow us to do a don't block the box paint job in front of the curb cut. The county was not in favor of that concept and basically told us they would not allow us to do so. But if you'd like to, I'm happy to turn it over to John if you'd like.
I'm just a little confused on this. I'm asking a couple of questions, but nobody else is confused?
I think we ought to go through the whole
Yeah,
traffic flow.
Sure.
Yeah, I think that was the only outstanding issue that I remember was the queuing on Stoneleigh, right? That's kind of where was the last piece that the board had issues that I remember.
I'll have our project traffic engineer, Frank Filiciotto, address those.
Hi. Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Frank Filiciotto from
Collins?
Stonefield. No, I'm not Mr. Collins. This is
You
Mr.
from
Collins.
Is that Mr. Collins?
This is Mr. Collins.
Good. I know Mr. Collins, though. He don't look like Mr. Collins, but I guess.
I don't think so. Would you like to hear from Mr. Collins?
No. Go right ahead.
So good evening, everyone. As Leo explained, in the intervening months, we've coordinated with DOT to an extensive period,
and we've obtained their conceptual approval for the curb cuts on Route 6. And just to refresh the board's memory on that, we're proposing...
You're gonna need the microphone, or slide that over towards... Thank you.
Everyone see that?
Yes.
So just to refresh the board's memory on this, we're proposing one right-in only driveway on the west end of the site and one right turn egress only driveway at the east end of the site. So no left turns into or out of the site from Route 6. That's something we've discussed with DOT. They've given us the green light to apply for a highway work permit, which we are in the process of doing now. It involves posting bonds, insurance certificates, things like that. So it's ongoing, but we do expect a highway work permit imminently. With respect to Stoneley Avenue, which is a county road, we've been in front of Putnam County Highways, and they have provided a letter of no exception associated with the current plan. So they've, in essence, approved this plan that's before you this evening as a full access driveway on Stoneley Avenue. We did, as Leo mentioned, approach them in November of last year regarding the do not block the box markings that I believe we had discussed at one of the earlier work sessions. We brought that to their attention. We have no objection to doing that, but it's not something that they would like to consider. They replied and said that that would not be acceptable at this time, and they copied Mr. Franzetti on that email. Regarding Mr. Collins's comments, we performed a traffic analysis of the queuing on southbound Stoneley Avenue because I believe there was a concern regarding traffic if you're waiting to make a left turn into the site. So this left turn, what effect it would have on the traffic following it because there's not a lane to move by. There's approximately 380 feet from the driveway north to the traffic signal, and we performed a traffic simulation analysis that showed that the resulting queuing from a vehicle waiting to make a left turn would be about 70 feet, which is about three or four vehicles, depending on how long they are. So based on our analysis, we concluded that that queuing would not back out to the intersection and adversely affect operations there. In terms of on-site operations, just to refresh the board's memory, the convenience store is located towards the east end of the site with the fueling islands near the center. And we've provided the board with some circulation paths that show how a tractor-trailer can maneuver on and off the property, as well as various passenger vehicles throughout the property. That's in a nutshell where we've been. We've also reviewed Mr. Collins's letter. He had a number of comments about the technical analysis. We've made those changes and provided that. At this point, we feel that we've addressed everything regarding traffic and transportation. And we welcome the board's feedback further.
I'm just waiting for some of the amendments because I have a lot of questions.
Sure.
So if you're coming down Route 6 and you can't make the left in, so then you gotta make a left onto Stoneley, and then come down Stoneley, and then make a left into the site.
That would be the only legal way, correct?
Well, let's stay on that point a while. Now, you know people's not going to do that. You know people is not going to do that. If they see that gas station, they need gas and they're coming north, they're going to turn into that station there.
Well, I'll tell you,
I'm going to tell you the reason I say that because when they was doing McDonald's, we asked the DOT. See, the DOT is a fantastic organization that do as little as it can.
right.
What we had asked them that time when they were doing McDonald's, we kind of suspected that something was going to happen to this gas station, was to put a turning lane, because they turn it at McDonald's, they turn right in that too. And they can slow traffic right up. And there's a lot of people goes in. I think this many people goes into the McDonald's from coming north as will go into that gas station. What they should have done, somebody should have been concerned about putting a turning lane that would have taken care of McDonald's and this facility at the same time.
Yeah.
And we don't have the engineer here to talk about that, but that's just a concern that I have.
Yeah.
People's going to turn in there.
Yeah, well, can you clarify that for me? You mentioned on Route 6, are we saying that it's one-way traffic in each of those two accesses, one way in and only one, and out the other direction?
Right turn in only, right turn out
So there's no two-way traffic in those openings, in those access?
And so what the DOT requires in those instances is, A, for the driveways to be channelized so that you're directed in that direction. And 2, that you have the appropriate signage as per the MUTCD, which is an industry standard, stop, one-ways, do not enters.
Okay.
And that's all being required as part of the permit.
Okay, fair enough.
To the chairman's comment, this driveway, so for someone to make a left off of Route 6, they'd be making a very irregular left turn if they try to do so.
No. My point is this, that's a business. That's a business that we hope, as a town, thrives.
Right.
You're cutting off your main point of a business when you cut the people going north to get into that facility.
Right.
Nobody thinks that?
You know, it's something that the operator and the owner had to weigh pretty heavily when we started this process with DOT, because we knew that in order to establish a left turn lane, there'd probably be a road widening required, other things that would make that project that much more infeasible. It's really not just the property in front of your site. You have implications to the east and west. That was a business decision, and if you think about gasoline service stations and convenience markets, you're really hinging upon the traffic that is flowing right directly in front of your property, which is the eastbound flow. That's really the traffic that it's looking to harness. There's enough traffic on Route 6 for this station to subside without that traffic. They hope to pick up some of that traffic by making the left onto Stoneleigh, but that's a business decision that was made, and they're comfortable moving forward with just right in and right out.
Is Mr. Collins got something to do with this?
He reviewed our submission on behalf of the town.
Right, Harold, Dr. Collins is our consultant for
Oh,
this.
he's our consultant?
That's correct.
Oh,
But if I may just make one other point, there is, not to advertise someone else's business, but to the extent that there are northbound motorists, there's a mobile station with a convenience mart and a Dunkin' Donuts, not that far up the road with a left turn, I believe a permitted left turn into the site.
Right.
there's only 2 businesses in there that doesn't have left turns, and that's the gas station up the road there
Right.
and this one right here.
I mean, this is a little bit,
I think up there where Dunkin' Donuts at, they don't have a left turn.
They don't have one, but
They don't have a
Yeah.
left turn.
It's a solid yellow, I believe.
Yeah, and you can get a little traffic build up there too, you can.
Yeah.
If you go in there, especially if you want to, you're hungry for a Dunkin'
you're
Donut. It's gonna take you a little while sometime to get in there, according to what time you get ready to go in there. That's my only concern there.
yeah.
Is Mr. Collins gonna address that?
I think he can speak to it, yeah.
What, can I, before
right
you
ahead,
do
I'm
that?
sorry, Carl.
No, I didn't mean
Go
to
right ahead.
interrupt. Can you explain, what is the mechanism that's going to stop a northbound motorist on Route 6 from trying to make that left?
Good question.
Well, physically restricted,
what's the
you have
mechanism?
the visual impediment of striking, which is going to deter most people. You have a no left turn sign, you have a one-way sign, and you have other markings in the driveway.
I'm sorry, where's the no left turn sign?
So no left turn sign will face traffic facing westbound, facing westbound traffic. So
Triple the-
completely eastbound.
Yeah,
It'll be on a 45-degree angle facing traffic, and then there'll be another no left turn sign on the north side of the road. You have to have 2 to be MUTCD compliant. So there'll be 2 no left turn signs facing you, as well as the fact that this driveway is angled, so you're
Right.
making a negative turn. Is it possible? Sure, of course it is. But will it deter the overwhelming majority of traffic? We believe so, and that's how DOT weighed in on it as well.
And on your exit, you'll have do not enters and one-ways, I'd assume?
That's right.
Yeah, because that'd be the easy way for them to.
Yeah, to zip in right on
That
it, yeah.
needs to be
yeah,
clearly labeled.
I think you may be a little optimistic on the number of people that will attempt that.
But-
But even a few, that's
The only open left
a
turn
really
is,
bad spot,
sorry,
yeah.
the only open left turn is at Kentucky Fried Chicken into that shopping center. The rest of it's a solid double all the way up.
Right.
But there's no signage that says no left turn, like into the mobile or anything, is there?
So,
Not that I recall, anyway.
so the only way in to making a left turn is on Stoneleigh, okay? And that's tight, and it seems to me, the way the pump layout, on-site coordination is gonna be a nightmare. Someone backing out of one of those spots in front of the store while people are queued at the pumps and trying to maneuver. If there's someone on the southern, or is that east, I guess, or southernmost pump, yeah, all the pump toward the bottom row of pumps there, and there's people backing out of, presumably they'll pull forward into the spots in front. They'll be backing out while the other guy's trying to pull out to go off to Route 6 going, taking a right, which he's able to do out of that entrance. They're with all 6 pumps there, and they're gonna have a problem, I think. Number two, I think someone making a left or a right into that station from Stoneleigh, talk about an overturn or what do you refer to it as a negative turn? To get to a pump from that turn, that's a pretty negative turn. It's 180 to come around to those pumps from Stoneleigh Avenue through that entrance.
Well, that's why we provided the double row. So if someone's making a right turn, and I would agree with you, the optimum location is probably not this pump.
Right.
That's why we provided
Right.
two
And
a little closer to Route 6.
And
to allow
those are
for
the
that.
optimum ones for the guy coming off of Route 6 on a normal right-hand turn, too.
That's correct, but you got to remember, I mean, this is a very, very normal site layout for a gasoline service station. Convenience store, parking, pumps, no doubt about it.
No, I understand that, the general layout, 6 pumps and all that, I get it. And that's a conventional thing, but this shape of this site and the specifics of this site don't look all that conducive to it.
Well, quite frankly, there's nothing we can really do about the
I
shape of the site.
Oh, I understand that.
So-
But if I may,
Sure.
couldn't the convenience store, without any other changes, be pulled back to put more clearance between the canopy and the gas pumps and the store without, just shift it back? It looks like there's about 10 feet before it would hit the property line there, or the setback line.
Unfortunately, we're pretty maxed out with the setback variance situation there. So we've placed it pretty much where it needs to be in terms of that building location.
So that's a front yard.
I'm not sure
It's a front yard, so it's the larger.
I did look at the plans here, and it does appear that if you simply took that building and slid it straight to its rear, come until that upper right corner hits the setback line, you'd pick up 10 feet clearance between those parking spaces, and if everything moved back from that point.
One of the potential issues is the direction we were given by the DEP is to not increase impervious surfaces on the site, so to draw the building back, inherently we're gonna wind up with more pavement, and we're kind of stuck with our existing footprint of impervious surface.
Okay, so, no, I get that. I'm sure DEP has that desire, but I think, frankly, in my opinion, public safety should trump the DEP in some ways. I mean, they're talking about stormwater. There's already enough pavement in there that another 10 feet of pavement isn't going to change the inundation analysis probably downstream by any significant fraction. And I'm not trying to usurp the DEP, but, it's going to be, they're going to be, and granted, they're not moving quickly and all that, but they're going to be fender benders, and,
If I may, Mr. Stone, if I may, we provide an excess of 24 feet from the back of these stalls to that fueling island. There's more than enough room for that person to back out and negotiate a turn. It's not tight, perhaps the plan appears tight, but there's really nothing here that's atypical in terms of a gasoline convenience store layout, other than the fact that it looks like it's on a slice of pizza. I mean, really, when you think about it, we have convenience store, parking, gasoline service area. It's very typical, and there's clear line of sight. There's nothing in between those two operations, and people generally know how to navigate gas stations. We do it every single week. You're facing, so if you see someone's rear lights on, you're a little bit more ginger with your exit maneuver. I agree with you. We're working with a challenging site, but I think that we've tried to locate the activity where the site's the widest, so that we'd be able to provide as much area as we can. But there's nothing here that is really atypical from a gasoline station site layout standpoint.
What is it, gray structure that seems to be touching up against the pumps.
Garbage
Is this the dumpster?
enclosure.
Yeah, is that the
Oh,
dumpster?
no, that's the subsurface tanks, right?
All those are underground tanks.
I'm gonna ask. What
They-
would
They
move
need
it,
to have a concrete, I think,
Yeah.
right, concrete over the top.
if you move the building back, what would that achieve? What is it?
If I'm parked in those spaces, head nose in front of that convenience store, which are a couple of ADA compliant spots, right?
Yeah.
And I have to back up and turn to go out onto Route 6, and someone's coming off of one of those 3 pumps on the bottom, or a landscaper pulls in to gas up all his rigs on his trailer, his car is
I didn't know
sitting
what,
right there.
I didn't know what you were trying to achieve.
No,
That's all. I wasn't
that's
sure what it
fine.
was that you were saying. That's,
That proximity and that, it's a bottleneck there. It seems to me, or a potential cause of confusion for folks. And, you know, it's gonna be fender bender stuff probably, because nobody's going 60 miles an hour, but it just seems really tight because of the shape of the site. I'm not disagreeing you haven't tried, okay? I know you've tried. I just wondered if it could be backed up a little more, and if that was a better overall solution, albeit making it a little more impervious.
Yeah, I don't want to speak for DEP, but I would imagine that that could very well be a non-starter with them, given the length of the time that we've spent trying to get an approval to maintain an existing gasoline station on this property.
Just some additional history, I don't know if the board recalls, but there was actually a different variation of this plan before you some time ago. Did it ever get to the plan?
It
Okay.
did, yeah.
Before you lost some time ago, and it received a knee-jerk reaction from the DEP, which then, when it was from this board, I believe, there was a car wash. I wasn't involved in that application. In the intervening time period between that application and this one, there was significant meetings with DEP on site as the parameters that we could redevelop the site with. One of those was to stay within the existing footprint of the impervious surfaces, which is kind of what, the design is, and where we are for that.
I deal with DEP on these issues a lot myself, and I understand that, but I guess the question is, has the issue of safety and the concern been discussed with them which one rises to the higher level of concern and consideration, I guess?
You know, I think, Mr. Stone, if we had an atypical situation where we were only providing 15 feet backup area and parking spaces were non-compliant from a width or a length standpoint, I might agree with you that we were kind of squeezing it a little bit, but we're really not. The parking spaces are all adequately sized. There's adequate backup space for someone to do that. Is there a natural yielding the right of way to someone that happens? Absolutely. I'm not trying to deny that you could just back out of here, without looking. That has to happen, as it does everywhere else. But there's nothing here that strikes me as really unusual from a gas station layout. And I've seen some pretty gnarly ones.
What is the distance from the back, I guess, the closest point of the parking stall in the corner there to the corner of the canopy? That distance. I couldn't quite read it on the drawing set we had. I thought it was called out, but
Corner of the canopy.
12 feet.
I didn't mean to put you on the spot there. I thought it was thought it was written on the drawing.
It's about 20 feet to the corner of the canopy.
It
Remember,
is.
the canopy is ahead. It's not a
No, I
physical
understand that, but I'm gauging that as the edge of a vehicle that might be parked under that canopy or close to it.
Sure. To a vehicle parked underneath it, you probably would have more like 25 to 27 feet, depending on where that vehicle falls in that process. If the person pulls all the way up past the canopy, you'd have to wait a little bit more, maybe communicate with that person, hey, can you back up? I need to get out, something like that.
And of course, it's given this configuration of access, it seems to me that side of the lower 3 pumps is going to be little used because it's going to be almost impossible to get to. If someone's coming in from Stoneleigh and from Route 6, the guy from Stoneleigh's not going to use those pumps ever. I mean, you can't even make that, I don't even think you can turn that arc and get in there.
Well, I would agree with you. I think this turn
Right.
is going to be one that
Right.
you probably end up in one of these. But certainly, if you're coming off Route 6, there's nothing prohibiting you from pulling up, depending on what side your fuel tank is on, into one of these.
Okay.
Even if you were to make a left in off Stoneleigh, could also park in one of these fueling locations. And fuel. I think it's going to depend on where people fall, but,
If somebody comes in from Stoneleigh and tries to
Sure.
go back out on Stoneleigh,
right. And,
they're gonna pull in, head to the, what's that, east, I guess?
right.
And then they're gonna have to queue around and come back out if they wanted to come back out on Stoneleigh?
Yeah, if they want to come back out on Stone, they have to do something like this. But we do have a 24-foot aisle,
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, so it's 2 lanes. You got 2 lanes, sure.
and today, if you're familiar with it today, both of these driveways are uncontrolled. There's no traffic control there. There's really no one-ways or do-not-enters. So you could technically legally enter here and have two-way traffic in both of these. You can have people hitting the,
I understand.
So we're
but
trying to
also
clean
there's
that
only
up.
one set of, was only one row of pumps today.
true.
And the building, yeah, so it's a little bit different, but.
True.
Yeah, I don't know that we can change that, but it still concerns me a little bit, on-site flow and control. My son's driving now, so, you know, there's a whole level of concern there.
Sure.
Pat,
Yes, sir.
we can talk to Mr. Collins.
Yes, absolutely.
I yield to Mr. Collins.
Good evening, Mr. Collins.
Evening. I'm here for a completely different matter, and I haven't, I don't think I've looked at this project in
Yeah, your
4
memo
months,
is-
6 months.
Can I just make a little short speech about this about this area here? And then I want to get your comments on it.
Okay?
See, we're talking about traffic getting into this spot here, and we're saying that, what he's saying is on Stoneleigh Avenue, you can make a right turn, and you can get in there, and on Stoneleigh Avenue, you can make a left turn and go in there. But you go out on Route 6, which is the main road, that you can, coming north, you cannot get into this project at all. Only way you can get into it is going south. Now, let's just think about that for a minute. You see, the reason that I'm talking about this is because I travel this every day. Every day I'm sitting there. When you pull up on Stoneleigh Avenue and get just past where McDonald's is here, the traffic is backed up from the red light all the way to the past there. Nobody's gonna get in nowhere. Now, you expect the traffic to come off of Route 6, make that turn at that red light, come in there, and buck this traffic to go in there. You think they're gonna do it?
That was
Now, I know that you have always said this is an F intersection.
the reason we recommended to the board was do not block the box on Stoneleigh Avenue is exactly for that reason. The queuing does extend past the driveway, and that was shown in the analysis. The only way to cure it, with respect to Stoneleigh Avenue as it exists today in that queuing, is to stop traffic from blocking the driveway during that particular interval. It's a standard process, do not block the box. I can't control what the county has decided. I haven't talked to the county,
Can I just stop you for a minute? Let me just make a suggestion to you,
okay?
or maybe we can do. What's this green section right here in the point? No, go way up there. Who owns that?
State of New.
Now, you go out on Route 6, see those yellow lines? Now, you know, them yellow lines is not gonna stop anybody from making a left turn in here, if they wanna make one in there. In fact, they'll convince themselves that you put it there so they can make a left turn. If you move that entrance, right there, if you move it 20 feet, you see what them yellow lines is? You could make a turning lane. Is that possible? And you know what you would alleviate? You would alleviate some mess on Stoneleigh Avenue. Now let's go back to Stoneleigh Avenue again. You notice these two entrances coming out of here?
Yep.
You see this one right in front of you that's closest, that one right, no, that's one right here. That entrance has got more traffic than Stone Lee have. See, what are you gonna do with all that traffic through there? You gonna add more to it? You're gonna let them come off of Route 6, turn in there, along with this traffic? Who's gonna move? Pat, have you looked at that intersection? Have you looked at the area in there? Mike, you must know that.
That light.
You travel that as I do.
Every day.
Every day. See, we seem to forget these two little outlets that's coming out here on the west side. We seem to forget that those guys is there. A lot of people go in and out of that, especially the one right in front of us here.
And that was the reason why what I was concerned about, with the location of the driveway, we get blocked.
Well, how about, let's take it,
This way, and it's blocked, they're gonna back up to the intersection.
let's go back to that little green section again. Let's see if we solve one problem. Can we come in up there?
So there's two issues with that. The first is, again, with the DEP. It would not be, we're operating on the assumption that we have a existing impervious footprint, and that's the compound.
You're not adding to the footprint. You're only moving the footprint.
We would be if we had to come in here and wrap in. We would need to add asphalt impervious area here.
I didn't ask you to come in too far. I said it's 20 feet. Put your ruler there and show me what 20 feet is.
Shift the whole thing 20 feet up the road towards
Up
the
the
road.
road.
The width of the existing opening.
20 feet, the whole
move
thing
it
gets
one
shifted.
width over.
Shift up. And you can take those yellow lines and make a turn lane so somebody coming north can get in there.
So then the second issue with the turning lane, and I don't know what the prevailing speeds are for the experts in the room, but there's gonna be a certain, distance that's required for the receiving, for the deceleration of cars entering into the turning lane.
Yeah.
Which, just looking at it, would require highway widening, and now you're getting.
That don't run water. That's a red light right in your left hand there. That's very active.
I think to answer your question, I can't answer it, I don't think anybody can answer it, because it's a state call. The New York State DOT has to make the call. There's two issues that I see. First of all, the DOT and the DEP. First issue, here's the chairman saying, if I was able to move the driveway south, bring it in this way, allow left turns by utilizing the existing pavement and remove striping along, some of the striping that currently exists along Route 6, would the DOT allow for left turns in? Right turns?
Okay.
First question. The second question is, since that does require additional pavement, and the DOT did approve it, could you get a permit from DEP to build that?
You're closing up one section. You're closing up that.
It is new permit, I'm not talking about widening Route 6,
Yeah.
I'm talking about.
I'm saying you're closing up this entrance. You're closing up that entrance right there.
He's shifting the impervious from
It'd be a
here to
very
here
small amount
in
of
like
I understand what DEP.
disturbance. Absolutely, it's still disturbance.
Well, DEP sometimes doesn't give you credit for, you
Correct.
take it away, they don't give you credit, you put it in,
What exists in that you're putting new.
if I put grass over the entire site, they would say thank you. But I couldn't get credit for that coverage someplace else.
fill the books.
That's my experience with DEP.
Is it worth a try?
It's always worth a try, because if the board.
Can you understand?
If the board insists upon left turn lane, or the left turn movements from 6, and DOT would approve it, then I think you may have an argument with DEP to allow that certain thing, because that's a required part of your approval. If the DOT did not allow it, the board would have to answer.
But I guess you can agree. If you sit there someday, just sit there. Get yourself a hamburger in McDonald's. And just sit, they got some nice booth. They got a nice booth there. Sit there and watch that whole,
I totally understand. I totally
watch that whole, it is a total mess.
Mr. Chairman, if I may just normalize this for everyone here.
I don't know, and nobody else knows that spot there?
No, I hear what you're
Oh, I've
saying.
been there, and I know what you're talking about.
If I may, this site is existing now with a driveway on Stoneleigh.
Yes.
And people are currently making the left turn into the the site from Stoneleaf today. Site exists, site operates. What we're forecasting is 7 additional vehicles making that movement, 7 in the peak hour. So one every, math,
9
right?
minutes.
1 every 10 minutes, adding to this left.
And where they gonna go? What's to make a turn? Where they going there? They coming down and make a left. How they gonna get through all this traffic right here?
They will wait just like everyone else. I mean, I know it's busy during peak hour.
That is true. I agree with you.
But
Hang on a minute, let me ask you a question. What's so bad about them sitting there and waiting their turn to get in there? You know what's wrong with it? There's people sitting on Route 6 trying to get on Stoneleaf Avenue. That's what's wrong with it.
the one thing to consider here, though, is that this is a convenience-based use. You're only going to make a turn out of your way. 'Cause I would consider this turn slightly out of your way, slightly inconvenient, right? You're only going to do that if it's convenient to do so. The majority of the traffic is going to make this right in. You're going to hit the pumps. You're going to leave.
I understand that, but let me just explain something, and Mr. Collins knows this, because I've been knowing him for years. It's not this board's only responsibility just to see if a business can get in there legally. It's duty to see that the welfare and the care of all the traffic and all the people that uses that facility is done and it's protected to the best of our ability. If we, every time, that's not the last business will come there. Right behind your coat there is a business, no, on that map. There's the business that just closed, Friendless. It's somebody's gonna open it someday, maybe better than Friendless. What happens? Along comes the traffic.
Well, we'd be happy to dig.
See, and then when we get to that fella that comes in here, this board's gonna ask about the same thing, and he gonna says, well, there's nothing we can do about that because the DEP won't let us do this. We gotta try. We really have to try to straighten up some of that.
I
calamity.
think the only way to address the chairman's concern is to go back to DOT and see if they would allow you to use part of the striped island to create a left turn stacking for 2 vehicles, 1 or 2 vehicles, to make a left turn into the site at that particular location, closing the existing right turn in driveway.
You know,
And then depending upon the outcome of that, as the board says, you can't control DOT.
you know, I used to know everybody up there in DOT. I will leave with them with you.
So did
to
I.
give it a shot.
There are a few other impediments. There's a hydrant, fire hydrant, right, just west of this driveway.
You may not have to move it that far. All we're trying to do is to get those yellow lines, but the yellow lines, move them over a little bit and get them so that we can get one car, just one car that can turn in there. It makes it much better than him going to that red light and adding to all of this traffic that's over in here, which is going to increase as time goes by. We hope it increases. We hope that business behind you, somebody gets the host to it and it becomes another viable business.
I'm not sure it's so much about the business part of it.
Why don't you call DOT when we go out there and talk to them?
It gets them out of the way.
I mean, we have broached the topic of a left turn lane along the top of DOT. It's going to require widening. They do not like sucking up shoulder area without replacing it. That is something that was discussed very early on. Because you just can't put the lane in, you then have to taper it back to normal. And I understand, I'm sympathetic to the request, but there were reasons why we ultimately said, let's simplify it right in, right out. And the traffic that's gonna make this turn is gonna be minimal to begin with because it's inconvenient. It's partially a business decision because the applicant knew that it was going to be relying on that traffic predominantly, if not entirely. And so far, we are comfortable with that. So
And you are the engineer, right?
I am.
I really don't, and I don't say this to be critical of your profession. I don't think that you took enough time to look at that in all its aspects to make that a better area for the town of Carmel. See, that's what we're arguing about. We're arguing about the people of the town of Carmel. It may be, you should hope that over half of your people in this town utilize that spot. We should hope that. We should hope maybe more than that. But to those people who are going in there, we would like for them to be safe and move comfortably. And we'd like to do the best we can to make that whole area as best that we can before we turn it loose and let them go in there. And I know we appreciate the business. We appreciate that that person wants to be there. But it's just the traffic that we think that we could edge a little bit. And we will not hold you up in anything else, but we would like for that traffic to be addressed. It's too many times that this board says, well, that's the best we can do. And guess what happens to us over the years? That intersection is an F.
Great.
Because over the years we says it's going to get better. Somewhere along the line, we got to stop.
I guess we just should not add to a already bad condition, right? Even if it's, 7 cars an hour.
So, Mr. Chairman, if I may, there's certain economics to everything. I think.
I understand that.
We would be happy to approach the DOT about minimal changes with striping to see if we can get a turn lane that turns into a highway widening program. I need to.
Oh, I'm not asking you to do that.
Understood. I could just see
Right.
the response coming back from the DOT that if we take up into the shoulder or we can't achieve the appropriate vehicle length, it turns into a bigger project, which then blows the applicant's budget and makes the project not worthwhile to pursue.
Now, so you're going to approach the DOT. You're going to approach the DOT, and that's like walking into a Golgotha. You know that. To walk up to the DOT and ask them, here's what the board said we'll do. Well, it's not going to work. Let us talk to them out there. Sometime we can see things better on the ground than we can sitting at a desk and on paper. Just look at it.
So what I'm hearing, the suggestion would be to have a representative DOT visit the site, meet with some person from the board or
And we go down, we sit and look at it, see what we can do.
And talk.
Before that intersection gets worse.
Okay.
I think that's a reasonable request, isn't it?
I think it's better than submitting a plan, and this way the board will have a direct
I just
information.
told you about a plan.
Plan, I know what happens to plans.
The plan with the DOT, is just like the Sunday news.
Told
How do we make this happen?
You call them, and I'll meet with you. Mr. Collins, can you be there?
I will be there, assuming I'm not on vacation, otherwise I can.
You know somebody at the DOT?
And I know we'll first start in the residency and then find somebody in DOT, yes.
And just want to set that in check. We're not saying that it has to be done. We want to
You want to explore all the
consider,
options.
explore what
Want to
options do
explore all the
to
options
make
so the
that,
board has the answer.
to make that better.
Yeah.
It would seem, if in fact it can be done, right, with the striping, that would be advantageous to your client anyway, right? He would get basically,
Well,
without widening the road, right, he would be able to get,
It may on the surface, but if it requires another 8 to 10 months of review at DEP because it's a modified site plan, it might not. There's a time value to everything as well. We've been at this for almost 4 years, really, from the very early on, car wash concept to where we stand today. And we've done a lot of changes to the site plan, and Mr. Chairman, I'm sympathetic to the traffic concerns that you have, but this site is dramatically better than what it is today in terms of aesthetics, in terms of layout. in terms of everything, and that's the essence of a project. It's not just one facet.
You don't have to tell me, I sit there every day.
Sure. So that's kind of where we're coming from. We're happy to have the conversation with you, too.
Great.
Thank you.
May I'll just throw this out there. Does it make any sense to ask someone from the DEP to be there at the same time and just discuss it so that they fully understand
something?
what we're trying to trade one for the other?
That's fine. I will deal with the DOT. You have the DOT.
Okay?
I agree with that, Mr. Chairman.
And I have no problem with that. If you can get them all there at the same time, that's fine. We could try it, couldn't we?
We could ask, I can only imagine trying to coordinate.
And
Agreed.
we sure are not trying to hold you up. But that area there is really a death trap. It really is. Trust me, it really is. And we got to try to do something with it. And I agree with you. We got to try to do something that we can move lines, crunch stains in, or do something. And I think it can be done if it takes a good look at it.
I will tell you that from a safety standpoint, the whole purpose of this was to eliminate left turns on the state highway. I think Mr. Collins would agree that when you eliminate left turns, you eliminate more of the possibility of accidents. And one of the things that we thought about when we decided to do that is there is a free right turn movement. There's a yield condition. The slipper ramp coming around from Stoneleigh onto eastbound Route 6. You're now talking about introducing a left turn movement closer to this slip ramp. That person is waiting for the same gap in traffic that this person may
I
be
agree with you.
doing so.
I agree with you.
So
I
what is it
agree with you.
gonna take to
But this is for a guy to get into a gas station.
Understood.
That's much different, him making that left turn onto Stoneleigh Avenue. Much different.
I would disagree.
Because now he comes down and he intermingles with all the traffic that's coming out of that shopping center, all the traffic that's coming down out of Carmel. They all mingle together. They have to come up on Stoneleigh Avenue. That's a total different thing than one car coming off of Route 6.
Mr. Chairman, I respectfully disagree because the left turn that you make onto Stoneleigh is on green arrow only. You can only make that turn when it's a green arrow. You're exclusively moving at that point. The person making a left turn into this site is waiting for a gap in traffic at any point in time, and so is this person. So I completely understand what you're saying, but there is a give and take. We're trying here to make the safest access plan as well.
Why don't we just try talking to the DOT?
Sure.
See, because I drive it every day. And you take your life in your hands sometime, and you're making left turns, right turns, and everything has to come off of Route 6 right to that traffic light. Thanks a lot.
Okay. Thank you. Sure.
ShopRite Carmel. Thank you, Mr. Collins.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Anthony Mollet. I have with me Dan Peveraro, the engineer, who is going to be setting up some plans.
How many pages? 3? Have a good day.
Thank you.
Michael?
The architectural consultant needs to review this plan and submit comments. He paid the fee, I believe it was today or yesterday. Rose acknowledged it. I sent an email to Vince, and he is aware and will be looking at this. The bulk requirement table is incorrect. It appears that the engineer only included the information for ShopRite. When you're doing the parking calculation, it's based on the entire shopping center, so we need that information. The truck template shows a truck entering a parking space. That doesn't comply. I spoke to the architect about that also. He said that it must have been something when they plotted, because it worked out on the computer, but they'll show us on the plan. Provide a list of all the variances that were granted for the site, either on the site plan or an attachment. Either one is fine. And the variances required for parking, we just don't know how much yet until we find out what they already got.
Is Rich got anything?
He does, Mr. Chairman. Some fairly detailed comments on this. I'll just touch on a couple of them. He points out the permits that are required. The applicant will require a SWIP for this application. I think the applicant's aware of that. Rich is pointing out that some of the parking space dimensions don't comply. That's what Mike noted before with respect to the potential for a variance. They need to show a water infiltration system meets the DEC requirements. He has comments about the pipes that are proposed for the stormwater system. He's requesting some other modifications to the stormwater plans. He's asking for load calculations. He is speaking about replanting of some of the traffic islands, comments on the retaining wall, fencing, calculations for the walls by a structural engineer. He speaks to the truck movements as well, who's going to own the sewer and water lines, and he needs easements. And on my comments, Mr. Chairman, as Mike indicated, there will be additional variances required for a number of parking spaces, whatever that amounts to, and as Rich indicated, for the size of some of those parking spaces. The applicant has submitted a revised submittal that clarified a number of issues. First and foremost, clarifying the intensity of the use of the operation, so the expansion of the facility is providing breathing room. It's not as though they're adding facilities to the supermarket like a cafe or some of those facilities that other supermarkets are providing. As Mike indicated, there is a truck access plan that's been submitted. Requires a little bit of clarification, but it is a one-way circulation around the back of the building, as the applicant described to you at their last appearance. And we had concerns about the area as vehicles came around the back of the building. They're demonstrating that there is technically enough area, but it is tight, but it is adequate. The applicant has provided a landscaping plan between that edge of that loading area and the driveway up to Hillcrest Commons that we talked about at the last meeting. That's been provided on the plan. They've added additional plantings in the end islands in certain areas, and they've clarified the location of dumpsters as well as the compactor in the back of the building as well.
Yes, sir.
Evening. As was just pointed out, we resubmitted our plans with a number of modifications per our previous meeting and per the comment letters that were generated. The major layout changes, a lot of the comments previously were pretty technical in nature, many of them having to do with the SWIP, which we're working with Mr. Franzetti to get the information that he needs to fully review it, and we acknowledge we need a SWIP. We gave the calculations. He just needs a little bit more information to be able to fully review it. So a lot of the comments were on that, and technical changes with respect to notes and details. The major changes that we made in terms of site layout, we added 10 stalls in the front area here in front of ShopRite by basically restriping. There were a number of stalls that were 11 feet, 10 feet. We restriped them to 9 feet to match what's in other parts of this ShopRite area currently, acknowledging that we're going to need a variance to do so. We were able to offset that additional parking with additional landscaping area, so there's no net change to imperviousness in the front part of the ShopRite, any more different than what we were doing previously. As was noted, we added landscaping up along Clapboard Ridge, a number of Norway spruces, which should give like evergreen screening, a number of smaller plantings to sort of give it a sort of a nicer manicured look up along that hill for people going up into the community behind. We also added some landscaping onto these end islands that we were adding to increase the landscape area in the front to offset the new parking that we added, those 10 stalls like I had mentioned previously. We've also provided truck turning templates as was requested. The only place where the trucks come close to a stall is in this area here, and they don't go into the stall. So I think it might have been a plotting error of some kind, but I'll certainly double check that and make sure any future plots that come to the town are adequately show that, but that it does not impede on the parking there. And then, as also was noted, we, there was some lengthy discussion at the previous meeting as to the intensity of the use here, and we, I don't know if you had a chance to look at the pictures of the samples, the other store that we had done, and that's not exactly what's going to happen on the interior, but that's the sort of the spirit and the feel of these new ShopRites.
Do your other stores have narrow parking spaces like the 9 foot by 18? I would think one place I wouldn't want to have narrow parking spaces is in a supermarket with the carriages and the wagons.
9 by 18 is a pretty typical parking stall.
It's existing on the site also.
Right.
Yeah.
That was one of the variances, but I wasn't sure if the variance for the 9 by 18 was for all the spots or for some of the spots. That's what I was trying to clear up on my question there about the variances.
Yeah, that's fine. Okay.
I do believe it was for some of the spots. The spots are sort of, and this happens over time with basically every shopping center. You end up with just sort of a mishmash of sizes. They go out and they restripe over time, and things sort of shrink by a few inches here and grow there. So, but it was 9 by 18 for a big chunk of the front of the ShopRite.
You require a parking variance anyway, right?
Yeah.
Number, at least.
Right.
Number and size are the two.
So you're doing the smaller size on the new ones too?
Yes.
Okay, there you go. Yes, both.
You know, I've been laying awake at night thinking about that thing that you said to us, but why you want that store to be bigger.
I don't know if it makes.
I haven't figured it out yet, what you said. Can I tell you what you said? You said it's because you want to spread things out. So I've been going around to all the stores I see that they're building them. And they're building them bigger, but they're closing things in so they can get more stuff there and going higher. As high as they figure the person can reach, they go up. That wasn't a good answer. You get the point? I'm trying to say that wasn't a good answer. I haven't got it out of my dream yet, but give me a better answer than that, why you want that additional space. Not that you want to spread things out. You want to do something else there.
These are photos of the interior of a site that was recently
One that's up
remodeled.
there now. This is the one that's up there now.
This is the interior of a site that was recently remodeled.
Okay.
And as you can tell, it's a lot nicer presentation of the materials. There, the area where currently they have all their different types of foods and everything doesn't look like this. It's narrower, and there are more obstacles to get you around, get around. The produce section doesn't look as nice, and you don't have as many options in the older stores. Everyone wants their particular brand of beans, and that's what you have to cater to as a grocer nowadays.
So you want to make it so that it's bigger and the displays become more openly so that people can see it. How about some guy that's old like me that don't want to walk all over the place?
Ebot.
And I'm not the only one around here. I just can't walk all over the stores. What do you think? What you gonna do with those people?
Well, I think that by offering more options, you could enter the store and have a reasonable expectation of finding what you want and not have to walk to another store to find it.
You're getting there.
You a lawyer?
Mr. Collins is here for some reason, isn't he? On parking?
That was our biggest issue in the past, right? It was the parking and the traffic flow outside in the parking lot.
Can we hear from him? You're not doing very good inside that store.
I got my glasses.
And you can't walk as far.
Well, except when my wife sends me to the store, then I can walk as far as she demands. The parking on this particular site, all you have to do is look at Google Maps, and you see where the parking is. And you basically see that this area by the supermarket is heavy, gets lighter, and this area is almost empty. So when you do an analysis, do an account of it, you find out that if I take the overall site, the square footage of today's footprint, and all the spaces that are there today, the ratio is less than 3. Town requires 6. Site was approved for 5.25. But the actual parking spaces on a Saturday, and it basically stayed pretty well even for the entire time period, and that's in the report, was a little over 350 spaces, which about 55%. So the ratio comes out to be just under 3, 2.75, whatever. One of the problems with this site is the fact is that the parking is on the south side, one side, and the demand is on the other side. We can't change that. We can't take the site and shrink it. What we can do, though, is get as many spaces in the area of the supermarket, food store, whatever you want to call it, and these spaces are available. Now, what's going to happen in the site is people use the site, and there are going to be more people to the site because one of the reasons is to increase the ticket price at checkout, so you spend more money at checkout. It doesn't mean that you have more people going into the store, but they may stay a little longer, because as you say, it takes a little bit longer to get around the store. So you may stay another 15 minutes. So we can't take all the parking we would like and put on that side, because the site just can't do it. But from the overall site, it works. And what we could do in that area, and that was part of our recommendation, was to maximize the number of spaces that we could. Now, we could add, 10 spaces in that area? Because we can take the striping, and instead of going with the wider stalls, we can make it a standard 9 by 18. That's basically the industry standard today, 9 by 18. And we find that it's not going to cause an unsafe condition. What's going to happen is there may be a slight, these people expand into this area, these people expand into this area, but there's sufficient, we're not talking about not having sufficient parking on site. It's where it is, and there's nothing that can be done about it, except to get as many spaces as you can. That's the conclusion. That's our recommendation based upon zoning. That's our argument to the zoning board when we get there. The size of the spaces with respect to the standards. And I don't know what more I can say. It's not causing a backup onto the roadway. It's not causing a problem. You have to come in. You have to take your spot, find a spot.
Can I ask one question? All the people that works at ShopRite, where do they park?
They park wherever they can. And there's since it's a union, the management can't tell the people where to park because it would become a contractual issue.
So my next question is.
I anticipated that question. And it would not be just for this store, it would be for the entire ShopRite organization.
Well, you could tell the employees, you could say it's for the benefit of the store. And then you can add the line to it.
Right, but you can say for the benefit of the store, could you consider?
Please.
But you can't tell them where to park.
Please.
We couldn't say,
No mandates.
park in the bottom.
Correct.
We can say,
can
could you
ask.
consider? I can ask.
Oh. You can't
It wouldn't
do-
be me,
you
it would
can't-
be
you
the
can't go
management.
the old way.
Fire them if they don't.
Today,
The union.
maybe I'll call you tomorrow. I'm just trying to figure out a way that you can, we can get more places.
I totally understand. I mean, if we had the space up in front, it would be beneficial to the store to put. I mean, if I could take these spaces and move them to that side, we wouldn't be talking as much. But I can't.
If you move the space to the other side, they got a lot of empty spaces over there.
What's round back?
It's tight back there.
What's round back?
Driving lane,
Yeah, it's
Huh?
Or in this area?
driving.
behind the store.
It's
tight
a
back.
drive aisle backed by basically a rock wall for a bunch of it, and a steep sort of hill.
There's
for
no
the
way to
rest of
make
it.
any parking back there?
No, and if we did, honestly, the parking would likely just be stalls to put on a piece of paper. I'm not sure anyone would really park back there. I'm not sure that you'd get any more use out of stalls behind there than you would these stalls here. You know better than me, but.
Can you park back there?
Yeah, well, the only way I was ever successful to get employees to park in the back was to have the employee, and it was for a Target store in Mount Kisco, and I made sure that the employee entrance had to be in the back of the building. And therefore, it was easier for them, it was convenient for them to park in the back and walk in from the back as opposed to parking in the front, walking around.
That's how Kmart was when it was Caldor.
Right.
You used to
So,
park in the back, go through the back, check your bag in the back.
check
and
your
then you
bag
could
and
go
right,
in.
in other words,
You had to
it's
go
always
past
the quote, the
security to work
employee
there.
entrance. But I can't, and in fact, I don't know whether, looking at it, I don't know whether it's an inviting area that I would want to have employees park in. Definitely not customers.
I can see that time has changed your mind too.
Well, I think, let me put it this way, the phone I have tonight was not the phone I had.
I don't, I understand.
And
I
in
understand.
fact, carrying a conversation, I had the conversation today. To me, the worst invention was that cell phone, because now it's 24/7 as opposed to, when you left at 5, you left at 5.
See, it's not just this board that's worrying about the parking. Parking is critical to that business.
It is, and in fact, what
So
would happen,
if whatever we all can do to make it better is better for the
I
business.
agree, and that's why we looked at maximizing the spaces that would exist.
Because, nobody's gonna park way down.
No, what's gonna happen
Yeah.
though, what's gonna...
Unless, and this don't require a union contract, you had a little thing running
Yeah, but I
around
can't
there.
commit to the boards that that's gonna happen. I would never commit to that board if that could happen.
But I said, that's the only other thing you
Right.
could do.
That's the only, you can ask them to do it, but
They're not gonna park down there, they can go somewhere else.
You're gonna have a bump effect, right? Everything's gonna kind of bump
yeah,
down.
it's just
right?
gonna, if you get 10 more people parking in this area, you're gonna move them down, so you're gonna spread it down to the other end of the site.
I've never been in that parking lot where you can't find a space, it's just where the space is.
Yeah, you gotta,
Oh, yeah.
It's just where it is, there's always spaces,
Right.
but it's just where.
it's where, it might, it's not a question of, do you have the space, it's a question of where those spaces are.
Yep.
Space is there.
Space is there.
And as I had mentioned at the last meeting, the addition of the front vestibule will help in utilizing the parking area more efficiently because you have the two doors. So instead of everyone parking at the, right in front of the one door, you have basically double the prime parking area. And then not quite, but pretty close.
Yeah, we're doing that.
I don't think that,
And then you're gonna have one over there, where is it now?
Pat, I don't think we got much we can say about that parking.
That's the issue. It is what it is, Mr. Chairman. There's no other space to provide that additional parking, unless they were to provide a
There's
parking
nowhere
deck
on
on
that
the
property.
side.
I'm looking at the property line and everything else, and I know behind that store is it's a ledge hill, isn't it?
Big old Rock Hill.
Yeah, there's nothing back there.
Yeah, it's nothing back there. I thought maybe it was some 10 feet back there.
If you
something
could
do.
get something back there, it'd be fine, but the fact is that there are some older centers, the newer centers you can design with people parking in the back, but even the new one that I've been involved in, there are so few spaces in the back that it's, compared to number of spaces.
How many spaces, how much are they lacking? How many spaces are they lacking?
We don't know yet. That's where what did my variance say, 215? 215 according to this, but they already got a variance for some. I don't know the exact number.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I'm going to throw this out there. It's a little off the reservation, but, because I still don't like this whole vestibule concept. It concerns me. We talked about this last time. You're adding 2 doors, agreed, and that will distribute some of the parking a little better. But folks, parking in those islands between those 2 door entrances now, according to this, that vestibule is coming right out to the column line. There is no sidewalk for them to get onto. They have to walk along the travelway, the asphalt travelway, to get to those doors if they cross there.
There's I don't know, if you're looking at sheet C 1.1, it's a little bit clearer.
I am looking at FP-1.
Dash 1 is the floor plan. The floor plan might not show, probably doesn't show the sidewalk. If you look at C 1.1, there's a 4-foot concrete sidewalk up on a curb in front of the vestibule.
A 4-foot concrete sidewalk, and those columns are 2 feet square?
The columns are inside of the vestibule. It's 4 foot clear of sidewalk.
There's no obstruction on this side. There's a 4-foot sidewalk in front of it.
That's
4-foot sidewalk.
Okay. I use that site. It doesn't sound like that. I don't recall it being
So
that
this
much
is
space.
Part of the reason for the design of the front of the building, or the redesign of it, is for safety. They've designed a number of their ShopRites in a similar manner. It provides an unobstructed sidewalk in addition to an interior vestibule.
I understand that. I understand that. But when you come out with go in or come out with a cart, 4 feet wide, and the columns are inside, if people don't want to travel in the right of way, they're on a 4-foot sidewalk with a cart full of groceries and 2 kids. They're going along this, a 4-foot wide was someone coming the other way. I don't know. I just kind of see it resulting in people closer to the traffic, let's put it that way. That's one point. So considering that and what the chairman's indicated and what we've talked about with the parking, and this one, I know it's, sit down, you might want to sit down on this one. What if you move the face of you're getting so much more floor space with the addition. Could you push the front of the building face back and you'd gain more parking that way as well?
I think, and I'm not a structural engineer, but I think doing that, you'd have to reset all of your footings. That would be significantly more costly.
It would likely be an enormous change, but because that, right now, the face of the remainder of that of the built structure sets back, at least 2 lanes, because the adjacent stores. If the facade was all the same line as the adjacent stores, you'd pick up probably 12 feet, maybe more, maybe 3 or 4 sets of spaces.
And that it currently does bump out from the face of the other stores, and there is a jog there. So, for every 10 feet that you bump the building back, you'd gain about 10 stalls, which is what we just added to the front.
Again, I recognize it's probably a modification, structural modification there that is dramatically going to change the budgets and all of that stuff. Certainly not that it's not doable. I mean, just about anything's doable, but
Given enough money, you could do more or less anything.
I just throw it out there for the sake of getting it on the record, I guess. I don't know if it's even something they'd entertain, but you're picking up 17,000 square feet? And I just know that, because people stand in that space between, I think it's CVS, or is it, no, it's, what's the?
Rite Aid, I
Walgreens, Rite Aid, somebody. That jog in the building that ShopRite sticks out, the standing traffic congregates there, and people walking in and out, it's just, and that's where you're now gonna be directing people even more coming out of the building.
And that area existing sort of in this elbow over here, the existing grading over here is funky, I guess, is how I would describe it. You come up sort of steep, and it's
bizarre,
very
yeah.
odd, and it feels it when you walk it. And we're obligated to fix it under ADA. We would probably fix it anyway. But that's getting all fixed with, a proper curb with a real ramp instead of sort of the existing additions, which are just sort of, I think at some point somebody raised the asphalt up to meet the top of curb, but I'm not exactly sure how what's existing there happened. But what we're doing over here with our grading should significantly better the existing situation in terms of pedestrian traffic moving into that area.
And then, just to go a little further here, the layout that I'm looking at, the floor plan, is that, it just says interior layout subject to change. You had indicated they were looking for more room to move and so forth in product. Are they literally, are they changing the aisle structure and spacing within the existing space? Is that their intent?
I believe so. The architect isn't here tonight because the architectural consultant didn't get a chance to review their plans. Respectfully, that would probably be a better question for her at the next meeting when she is here.
It looked to me like the intent that a layout is going to actually change, Carl. I think it's going to be a different store inside, right? A little more modern.
So
I do
you're gonna
believe
have
that they're
more
changing the
gondolas.
aisle widths, but I don't want to speak out of turn. The architect knows more about the
Seemed to be
interior
the look
layout
that
than I
the
do.
way I looked at it anyway, it looked like it was,
Look like more island things, like the
Well,
refrigerated
contemporary, right?
things,
It's,
cheese.
yeah, you have 65,000 cheeses, right? You got to have them all.
I'll have one of each.
What's the next step on this one?
Gonna get me the information so we can
And our architect.
decide if you want to send it to zoning.
At this point, based upon the parking we have, as we discussed at length here tonight, about all the parking we're going to be able to fit, and with respect to the size of some of the spaces and the number of some of the spaces, we would have to go to ZBA. It's unavoidable. So at whatever point the board felt it appropriate to have us go to ZBA, we would do that. If there were any further changes based upon this board's comments that affected the parking that required us to go back to ZBA after that, that's kind of at the applicant's risk, and that's what they have to deal with. I think we're comfortable at this point with having fit as much parking as possible onto the site.
I think, in looking at this, there is sufficient parking, but not sufficient for that store, but it will be as they utilize that whole parking area. So what they need to do is to get to the ZBA to get a variance to allow them to change those parking spaces, reduce those parking places. That's what,
To 9 by 18.
to be 9 by 18. That is something that the board has to agree on, that you want to send them for that variance.
I don't think there's much else they're going to be able to do, right? In the end, it is what it is. We're not going to, I don't think they're going to change the site significantly here. Right? I mean, it appears to me it kind of is what it is. I mean, I would certainly be interested in the architectural components of this, and my understanding is Vince just came on board, right? But in the meantime, I would have no problem sending them to the ZBA. I think it's fine.
Well, my concern is that, there's nothing dangerous about that. There's nothing dangerous about it.
Yeah, it's just an inconvenience, right?
Just gonna make me walk further.
You get your Fitbit, you get your steps in, that's
Well, you could have put a little fairway up there with a golf course.
there you go. Then you might be onto something. You put golf carts down there and Harold can ride up, then you'll be okay.
But there's just one thing that I wish you would do for us. And I don't know whether he has it there. I think he has it on his, but I would like to see it on a map, elevation view
Of the building?
of the building, and
Yeah.
showing the sidewalk and everything else.
Yeah, I'd like to see that. I can't quite see it here. The scan's never.
But
come up.
what I want that is so it can be, I want it so it can be in front of us, that we can sit and look at it.
So more than this, or,
Are you an architect?
no, I'm an engineer.
you know, some, in my year, 40 years I was in that business, I never got along with engineers.
I'm sorry I couldn't do my part.
No, but you just want an elevation. You know what elevation is? You take a
Cross-section.
We sitting here looking at it now, but take a small piece of paper and draw an elevation and say everything's gonna be down here, where the driveway is gonna be, the walkway is gonna be.
So what you want to see
Section.
is
Section.
a section.
Yes.
A section through the
Section, so we can see what it's gonna look like.
Then they'll be able to see that there's sidewalk underneath the,
And
And
how the canopies are
how
gonna
far
look.
it come out, how
Okay.
safe it is, because sometimes they build great sidewalks. That's great in front of the store. Then they block the whole thing with carts,
Or watermelon or something.
or something else. And you
Flowers in the
and you
spring.
still can't walk.
Okay,
Let's just look at it so we can have some, that way it's gonna be right.
sure.
Pat, do you have any trouble, your mic just going to the?
No, the only
seat?
issue, Mr. Chairman, is that the
want
plan
to-
before you does not have the parking count
Beg
firmly
pardon?
established. So that's a normally you would deny the plan that goes to the ZBA. That's not the plan that will go to the ZBA. The parking variance hasn't been.
Where's the plan at? They don't have it?
So what needs to be added to the plan is the
The number.
the number that was
Overall
previously
area.
approved.
So they
or
need to have that put in.
the parking, because I have existing and required for the whole site on here. I don't have what was
maybe you
previously.
should call me so we could discuss that, because it's,
Okay.
it's a little confusing. They separated out ShopRite.
I don't wanna know. They can't get to it until they get that print, correct? Cause that's when we stamp.
Typically, that's what you do, Mr. Chairman.
Beg
Even though
pardon?
it's just a number that would go on that drawing, it's not on the drawing.
Yeah, I note on here, and I can discuss this with you, but I note that minimum parking stalls, 885 permitted, 679 existing, 680 proposed. Minimum parking stall size.
Mr.
10 by
Chairman,
40.
what you might be able to do is make the referral tonight, subject to Mike and the applicant clarifying that number to be added to that particular drawing. I don't think that's a problem, doing it that way. This way we don't hold them up unnecessarily.
And I'll verify the numbers.
It's just a matter of Mike verifying a number.
You can't go without my initials.
I don't want to hold them up, but they got a lot of work to do. We're not holding them up. So it's not that we don't send them tonight, that it's gonna be a blind blocking thing. I'd rather put something stamped that looks correct, as this board has always done.
And Vince didn't even look at it yet, so we have time. I mean, it's,
So when we get that print the next time, it's satisfactory to the,
If I may, Mr. Chairman, we do have a draft CBA application based on this plan. Would I be able to show that to you for the building?
show it to them. You see that table over there? See the fellow that's sitting up to the left over there?
great.
You thought
They
you were
want
gonna
that
get
on,
out of this easy.
that's great, but they want that, they want us to discuss it on that plan so that we can get it crystal clear out.
Just got started on this. It's gonna take Vincent some
Correct.
time.
Yeah, that's all we're talking about.
Yeah.
Correct, but
I would keep moving.
that should be clarified on the plan first.
The third column saying,
We'll wait till the next meeting.
numbers is.
Okay, anything else?
I would,
I'm sorry.
no, yeah, there is, I would like to add, actually, in addition to the section, if you could provide, or the architect could provide an expanded, it's very difficult to see these small drawings, an expanded section, not of the back of the building, but that front area out to, say, the first 3 or 4 parking spaces.
Very good.
So that we can, pointing out, like, for example, where they're gonna have recycle, right? They have the bottle can thing going on in the front vestibule area somewhere?
The bottle return?
Yeah, yeah. If you, that whole sort of, from the checkout counters out to the third parking space piece of the front of that building expanded on the drawing, yeah, that's
Okay.
that area. So we can see, that's where the people are gonna be flowing, where the traffic's flowing, close to the building. That's the area of concern. Anything you can do to expand that and clarify the various functions and areas there would be helpful.
Yeah.
Well, he wants a cross-section. I also want a plan view, expanded plan of that particular area.
Right, the floor plan from the registers out and then into the site plan.
Yeah,
down
showing
to
the
a few stalls.
vestibule,
The aisles,
that
have
whole
parking
thing, yeah.
spots.
Yeah.
That would be helpful, thank you.
Is that it? Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much. Have a nice night.
Thank you, Mr. Collins. And I hope to meet you up there on the Route 6 with those fellows. Thanks very much.
Sorry about that, John.
And you know, I'm only expounding on what you told me maybe 15 years ago. You said that intersection is no good.
It was 20 years ago.
It was 20 years ago, right?
Because I was here
And
for
so I'm a good student. And so, you know something, it hasn't got any
I
better.
just got here then.
And every time we add something to it, it gets worse.
The best part is when, I want to record that. Deal with what happens with you, you can make that. Oh, okay.
Have a good night.
You too.
You too. The last item on the agenda
Are you kidding me?
is that San Severa,
Severa.
San Severa.
Hi,
How are you?
good evening, members of the
All right,
board.
hold just a minute. Michael?
Trying to get into this. Provide an area map with all the location of any wells, depth thereof within 300 feet of the property. It's one of the requirements that you give us an area map showing all of that, 300 feet past the property line. The location of any sewage disposal system, I think they have sewer and water there. Is that true, or is it septic? Sewer and water?
It's town.
Count, good, so you don't have to show the septic areas. Provide a detail of any drainage system proposed to be installed and maintained by the applicant, designed to provide for proper surface drainage of the land. If you're catching any of that water and directing it, that's gonna run down there, just make sure you show us that on the plan.
This is right down the hill there?
This is over in Carmel by Glenida Ridge Road.
Yeah.
That's
it-
right down the hill, off of 301?
I have actually a little
Coming
map.
straight in, yep, it would be that way also.
Okay. Pat?
I have Rich's comments, Mr. Chairman. I have no site planning comments on this. It's really, it's a grading application. So Rich has comments. This application involves regrading and leveling of the backyard. Planning board should be aware that the applicant has already had approximately 75 cubic yards of soil delivered to the site, and they have received a stop work order. The applicant did perform testing of the soils, and the test results show that they are below New York State residential use criteria. He has the following comments. It's unclear if the information provided, if any additional soils are to be brought to the site in addition to what's already been brought to the site, should be clarified, as there are restrictions regarding truck deliveries and soil sampling. Number two, the plan should specify the total area to be disturbed so the applicable SWIP requirements can be defined. Number three, additional details should be provided on how the proposed work will take place, a construction sequence. And number four, various plan requirements for landfills and grading are lacking, and he identifies the specific items that need to be added to the plan themselves.
Would you happen to have a copy of that?
I
Extra
don't,
copy-
but we can
extra
get it to
copy.
you tomorrow.
All right.
Why was that dirt delivered there in the first place? Why was it delivered there? He had,
Gentleman didn't know that he needed permits to do this. We went out there, stopped him, and that's why he's here, trying to show us what he wanted to do now.
okay. And this board has to,
Approve the regrading permit.
yes, sir.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm Hernani de Almeida. I'm the engineer of record for this project. Mr. Sanzavera is my client. He's sitting in the audience. You have a little bit of the background there, how he didn't know that he needed to follow certain protocol when it came to leveling out his backyard. I don't know if you got a
Is that
copy.
it underneath there?
No. What we have here,
What's the screen there?
that's some pictures I'll show you in a minute.
Okay.
So what we have here is his backyard as it is with the topography shown. This is a revised plan to show the area, location of the site. That's Lake Glenida. This is Route 6 here. And this is 52. And this is 301. And this is I guess it's kind of like a peninsula with Glen Etheridge Road, Glenview Drive.
That's different than the plan we got, though, right?
Yes, this is
Yeah,
updated.
I don't see
I was like,
This is
that-
updated.
That's
for
what I
future-
asked you for,
No,
that key
this
plan.
is- this is,
Sorry.
uh,
I didn't mean to interrupt you, I'm
That's all
sorry.
right. This is updated, and a lot of these updates include some of those comments that Mr. Franzetti made, including location map, area map, tax map showing the neighbors' areas. As we said earlier, this is all sewered and watered, to my knowledge, and I'll find out, I have to guess from the Board of Health, if there are any existing wells or septic fields in the area as per the comments, but I'll have to get that from the Board of Health. I doubt it. You know, once they water it, everybody wants to hook up to water.
One area that is, I'm not sure if he's by it, though, that's
I'll, like I said, I have to go through the Board of Health to find that, right?
Ridge.
I'm sorry, what's behind the property on the other side? Is that the lake?
Over here?
No. On
Property.
right there, what, that back property line, what's behind it?
There's property line right about here. This is one neighbor, and there's another neighbor here.
Okay, so this isn't backing up on Lake Lenida?
No.
I
Lake
wasn't
Lenida
quite-
would be across the street from them, and then behind those houses, and downhill.
I wasn't that familiar with that. Okay, thank you.
Not a problem. So the topography is such that the grade raises towards the house, creates a break, and then sheds away from the house. Again, Lake Lenida is towards the front and across the street, downhill. We're downhill behind the house. There's roughly 8 to 10% grade going on pre-construction. He brought in some soil. Before he could knock it down, he was advised what he needed to do. He stopped all the work. He sought me out, and I told him right away he had to put some erosion control in, a silt fence, which he did. Within 24 hours, it was done. And then we started getting the soil samples tested. We sampled the soil above and beyond DEC regulations, meaning the number of sample sets we took were more than what was required, just to be sure. Mr. Sansevera does have a small child, 2 years old, and he doesn't want the kid to be eating contaminated soil. So we just took extra samples and
Do we know where the
Have you
sewer-
seen the samples, Mike?
We have the reports on the samples.
Okay.
I gave the report with the
Rich.
samples with all the results on there for all 5 samples.
who,
That was part of the submission.
Do you know where the soil was sourced from, too?
Yes. It's a sole source. It came from Rye, the city of Rye.
Okay.
They were doing an excavation project there, and Mr. Sansevera had access to that soil.
Okay.
So they brought it in and did a nice little, although I am an engineer, I did architecture for a while in the beginning of my career. I worked for an architect, went to high school for architecture. So I like to color things in when I show them.
You should apply to the job for those, with those colors.
So this is Mr. Sansevera's house, the driveway, the 2-car garage. Nothing's changing really. We're making changes pretty much from this topo line here all the way back. These are the locations of the piles, and these hard lines here are the new topography. You could see a profile here, kind of like a cross-section, as you were talking about earlier with that other project, of what the topography looks like now. That's the dark shaded area, and what it will be with the slope here.
Now, will that 75 yards get you there, or you?
Oh, certainly. We're talking about maybe 3 feet towards the end, towards the back, maybe 4.
This is all the fill you need then?
Yeah, what he's going to do is he's going to take the existing piles that are there, and that's why I brought these pictures, so you can visualize it
That
better.
cross-section's showing about 6 feet.
Is it 6 feet at the toe, and then down to, feathers down to nothing up on
Right.
top. So on average, about
On
3 feet or
average,
so.
okay.
So here's the piles now. This is standing, as you can see, this photo is standing right next to his garage, looking at the piles that way. Just, vantage point, vantage point, vantage point. So this is the first photo here by the garage. This is me standing a little closer. This was taken yesterday. That's how fresh these photos are. And this is looking at the toe of the slope. Here's the toe up to the first top of the pile. And here's your silt fence that was installed. He's basically gonna take this pile, knock it down in that direction, and grade it back. After that, this soil is, although it's clean from contamination, it's dead soil, it's fill. Dead soil, it doesn't have any nutrients in it, you can't use it to grow anything. So after everything is graded and brought up to the right elevations, he will get some topsoil like you would get when you reseed your front lawn, and he'll bring that in so he can seed something and it'll grow. That he only needs 3-4 inches of on top of everything. With that, I'll have to speak to Mr. Franzetti and Village and the town regarding what's required for bringing in for customary landscape. I don't know if it's required or not, because a lot of people do their front lawns. I don't think they bring in soil sampling from a nursery or wherever they get their topsoil from, because by the time they get that sample, that pile is gone and there's a new pile in there.
Right.
It takes a while to get those sample results back. So I don't know what's customary. We'll follow whatever the rules are when it comes to soil sampling, of course.
I don't, if it's commercially purchased through a landscaper
I
or
don't think-
something,
yeah,
I don't think they're required to do
I
that
think
because
that's
they
right.
can't sell soil that's contaminated,
Right, I
right?
think that's right.
So he'll be bringing in topsoil. Again, that's minor, customary type landscaping stuff, as if you were to do your front lawn or back lawn or whatever.
Can I ask, the slope beyond this, I guess in the neighbor's property behind that, is that, what kind of, it looks fairly steep back there. Is that
It-
steep down to the next property?
The next property, it's a little steep from the toe of the slope to the next property. It's a sudden drop, but then it levels out. They have an in-ground pool behind him, so it's a nice big level backyard for and then their backyard is terraced.
So the in-ground pool is above his yard?
No, it's below
Below.
Mr. Sansevera's yard.
Down below, right?
So Mr. Sansevera's yard or property slopes down. The slope continues on the rear yard neighbor, and then not for very long, and then flattens out, in-ground pool, and then it terraces. Mr. Sansevera did talk to all of his neighbors about this, none of which expressed to us any concern about the project, and they were quite surprised that we even had to approach them about it. And so it's not just Mr. Sansevera didn't realize what he had to do. It's all the neighbors didn't realize something like this was necessary. So we're here for a very simple grading plan. Unfortunately, it's not more complicated than that.
Pat, does this require notification of neighbors, something like this? No, right? Okay, it's not.
Yeah, it's a grading permit, really.
Yeah, okay.
But we did reach out to them, every single one abutting him.
Well, no, I
Just for
understand
the
that.
record,
Yeah,
just for the record.
For purposes of documentation, I didn't know if that was required or not.
As far as the stormwater, maybe I should get into that. It's kind of obvious that since we're flattening it out, we're slowing the amount of stormwater coming off the site. So we're not increasing the runoff towards a neighbor. It was brought up to my attention, what about the stormwater that falls on the toe of this new work?
Right.
Right here. It's not significant. It's a very insignificant watershed area. But you know, I'm an engineer. I'll put anything you want into formulas, and I did the pre and post construction. Huh?
Can I make a couple suggestions to you?
Sure.
What are you here for?
Excuse me?
What are you here for?
I'm here for approval for the board to let him.
And you have applied to the consultants, to the town
Yes.
Yes.
for that. You have told them what you want.
Yes.
Stop talking. They're gonna tell us what's going on. Can you tell
Yeah,
us what's going on there?
Rich's memo identifies what's necessary. The applicant can respond to it. He can come back and you can grant and consider the approval.
So what's he needs to do?
Respond to Rich's memo.
Sounds like these plans need to get to the consultants. That's what it sounds like to me.
Right, so that's a, for example, yeah.
So
You just
then-
need to do
Seems like a pretty good
details.
presentation. I think you just need to get to the consultants.
Yeah.
So, he's all set. Now, the board is gonna wait for him to come back with further,
And then Rich will tell you that he's addressed all his comments and you're in a position to approve his plan.
to prove his plan.
Yep. Yep,
How
so
about a permit? He has a permit?
That's
no,
the permit.
That you are the permit in this case. So you'll give him the permit to do the work.
When Rich says so.
Yep,
One which.
exactly
Good,
right.
thanks very much.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay? Do you need any more questions from him? Because I'm looking at the plan there. I'm gonna tell you, pull one of the pictures up. You know, I don't know whether I'm looking through the trees or looking through the sand pile there in one place.
Well, the vegetation
Oh.
grew up on the piles.
No, that's the pile, right? Hang on a minute. Take your pencil, no, look at me. Take your pencil over here and go straight up. That's the pile, right?
That's the silt fence
Now
past it.
come back down, put your pencil, come right across. What's through there? Is that tree, I'm looking through the trees there?
Yep.
I'm looking through them. How the heck am I looking through the trees and the pile is way up behind than that is?
Like I said, the slope goes down behind his property.
No.
There's two pictures
No,
posed, it's
there's-
hard to see. Draw the frame of the picture for him.
Yeah, it's two
The
different pictures.
picture's laying over the picture.
Right.
That's the frame of one picture. That's laying in front of the
Oh.
other
And there's
picture.
different piles.
It's hard to
Yeah,
see.
Yeah.
And
It's not a continuous
there's 5
picture.
different piles there, right?
Yes.
Now, you're an engineer. Now I know you're an engineer. We all set?
Yeah.
He just
So
needs
what's
to
the,
address
what's,
it.
just,
Address the
just for
comments, we'll get them to you tomorrow.
clarification, Pat, what's the process here? Has to go for a public hearing and all that?
Does not require a public hearing on this.
No.
So this is simply a permit that you're authorized to issue instead of Mike or Rich issuing.
At the next meeting, Rich is gonna tell us whether he needs that, whether he
Gonna come back in 2
wants that.
Hopefully he's gonna say he did everything.
I think it's
He
2 weeks
does.
next
Yeah,
meeting.
he already has a memo.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Thank you.
You stay in touch with,
You have to get that stuff to the consultants.
Okay, so we'll get you the memo from
Once
Rich.
I have the memo, I'll know exactly line by line.
All right.
you stay in touch with them before you come back.
On the surface, the presentation looks pretty good, that's all.
Have a good night.
On the surface. Whatever that is, right. Not sure what it's doing here, but I'm not sure.
We have the minutes
even
of
looking at?
May
Got the
24th.
minutes?
Yeah.
Can we,
What we got?
the minutes?
Review them this time.
Make a motion to accept the minutes of May 24th, 2017.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anything going on we need to know about?
No, sir. Absolutely nothing.
Thanks very much. I think we,
Motion to adjourn?
I'll second.
all in favor?
Aye.